Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hopefully you're having a good week so far, right? It's Friday, it's the end. And what does Fridays mean here at Millennial? Well, it's another episode. We're going to yell today, guys. But before we get into all our yelling, right, we're going to be talking about self-doubt today, which we all deal with, right? No one's immune to that. We have all dealt with self-doubt at some point in our lives. But before we get into that, guys, right, my name is Billy Zerillo. This is Mel. We're here to yell about this topic today. So obviously, if this is something that's near and dear to your heart, we want you to make sure that you're commenting, that you're sharing who you are, where you're from. We'd love to give you guys a shout out. And if you're going to be jumping on the replay or catching us on one of the other platforms that we're on, make sure you go do that as well. Let us know. We'd love to come back on here and give you guys a shout out. But yeah, so it's been an eventful week so far. And this is definitely a topic for me that's near and dear to my heart, because if you're an entrepreneur or if you're own your own business, or you're just a normal human being, at some point in your life, you've experienced self-doubt. But like I said, before we get in that, Mel, what is going on? How's your week been? How are you doing?
Hey guys, it's Mel. That was a great intro, Billy. I look, it's just because we're so ready to millennial about self-doubt, because trust me, I've had it and I still do. But week's great. I had a great Why Not Yell with Mel episode with Sam, and we just wanted to thank everyone that had watched us, whether you were watching it live or after. We had a really great time. We were yelling about divorcing the stigma of divorce, and it was just a really great time. I was talking to her after that. It was actually really invigorating, because I've talked to some people about it, and it's been for me longer than her, but I just really felt good that we were able to get out and have a voice and have a platform now, like we do here with this podcast, to speak these stories. And it's, everything that we talk about today with the self-doubt. We talked about, confidence. I just posted, obviously, confidence. We're going to roll into that. But a lot of the things that we share on here, I think has given me some great just feelings talking about it. But I'm just really hoping that we're able to help other people and maybe bring some of these things to light that we all really need to hear about. And that's why we're millennialing. So just was pumped about that and appreciative of you helping me here and getting this thing going, because without you too, I wouldn't have been, we wouldn't be here.
Well, no, I appreciate that. And I got to catch up, because you've done 2 episodes of
Yeah.
wine. I am slacking. So
it's just an excuse for me to have wine during the week. No,
well, don't worry. I have something. We have some stuff in the pipeline. We're going to get the first inaugural show of What's Brewing with Billy up and running. So don't worry, that's coming down the pipeline. So don't worry about that. But let's get back to the topic at hand, right? Self-doubt, right? It's like I said, it's something that I deal with. And I think no matter how much self-development you do, you're still human, right?
Definitely.
I heard someone say one time that you can't control the first thought that comes through your head, but you can control the second thought. Right. And you have the ability to make a choice at that point. Mm-hmm. And for me, like especially in my business, I deal with self-doubt all the time, because I think self-doubt definitely comes from a place of, you've never been there before. So you don't know what it's going to be like. And you often question yourself, right? You question mm-hmm. what you're doing. You question just life in general. Like, yeah, I'm sure you've ran into situations like that before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I still do it all the time. I think, it's something that we do in work and especially, like you said, as entrepreneurs, but I think also in relationships and
that's a good one.
And friendships. And look, with COVID right now, man, there is so much, and I don't even know if it's self-doubt. It's just more of like questioning, and did I do something, or did I hurt their feelings? I mean, there's a lot, even that self-doubt. It's not just about things with work. It's with relationships too. And I feel like there's a lot more going on, but I think it's not just millennials. Like millennials probably experience self-doubt more than any generation, but because there's so many things that we have talked about. But I think that it is part of being human. And it's, I think we talk a little bit about why we do it, and almost like the goods and bads about it, because there are some good, there are some benefits, but I think it was a great topic today, because we had just posted a little bit that carried on from last week's podcast, and comparing yourself to others, that has a self-doubt factor. And then when I was talking with Sam about the divorce and things, that carries a lot of self-doubt. And then the confidence post that we just posted just happened to be, it just all ties in together. So I think this is a great topic to yell about today.
Yeah, no, I mean, you brought up a good point, like relationships, like how many times, even the best relationships, even the ones that communicate the most, right? Like I like to think that me and my wife communicate really well. But there are times where you're just like, you have doubt about like where you might be going in life, because you just never been there before, like, like me, if you want to start a family, right? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of self-doubt there. Like, right. It's really hard to start a family. Like, people don't realize like how hard it is to do those types of things. It just doesn't happen just because two people get together, right? There's a lot of things got to work out in the right direction. And so like, when you're trying to start a family, in a sense, like there's doubt there, like, is it going to ever happen? And then I mean, you look like
I was just going to say, it came up in our podcast about with Sam, that you almost sometimes can get into a situation where you start to doubt yourself based on what other people are doing, or how things are going. And you start to doubt what you stand for, or what your values are, what you want, and it might not be inflicted because of other people's thoughts, but I think that you could be in a situation, in a relationship, and it's not really what you want or where you saw yourself. And then you start to doubt yourself. Do I really want this? Well, am I okay with this? So that wasn't even something I was even going to bring up today in my notes, but it can carry into relationships too.
Yeah. I mean, I like, just to be fully transparent, right. And kind of give you an example. I felt self-doubt yesterday. Like I was, the month for me business-wise might have not been the month that I had planned for, right? And when you set big goals, right, there's that risk of not accomplishing those goals. And so I started questioning myself, like, am I made for this, right? And do people want to become my client? Like, I'm not, and like there are people that are better than me than this, right? And those things start to creep in, and I call it like quicksand, right? Mm-hmm. Like, feel like no matter what you do, like, then like I'll try to say to myself, well, let me set this one goal and let me get out of this funk, right? Because you feel like you're just in the clouds, and like you're in like you're just stuck. And that's how I felt. I felt stuck. And so tried to do those things and stuff like that, but it just feels like no matter what you do, everything you touch after that point, it just feels like it melts in your hands, right?
Right. It's like a compound effect. Okay, it keeps happening after you're doubting yourself on something, then you're doubting yourself on the self-doubt. It's almost like this, domino effect that you keep. That's why we're here to talk about trying not to have self-doubt, and what can we do to avoid that, because I do think it is a ripple effect for sure, because it leads to depression, it leads to anxiety, it leads to loneliness and this whole competition. And I mean, look at what we say about the millennials, the selfie generation, and social media, and all these things that we talked about, comparing ourselves to others. It's about self-esteem, and some of it's things that have happened to us from birth, in a sense, or just how we were. That's got us here, and just the history of that, perfectionism and everything. It's just kind of all ties in.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up a good point. Like, I was just thinking about while you're talking, and the thoughts that go through your head, your mind can be a dangerous place, right? When you allow it to. And I think a lot of times we create scenarios that really will never happen or really don't even exist. And it goes back to like fight or flight, right? Like, we're not running away from saber-toothed tigers anymore, right? That's not a real threat anymore, but we still have that wired in us. And I think that's where self-doubt comes from, because you start to think about all the possibilities that are negative, right? And you're like, and it's just a compound, right? And you start to then you feel it like in your chest and emotionally and like posture, and then your energy level. And it just, like you said, it just compounds, right? It's just like, it just takes that one little like spark in your brain to just turn into like an unbelievable fire. And but like, what you said with comparing, if we can say all day to not compare yourself to anybody, but subconsciously we're always doing it, right? Which creates, like you said, self-doubt about where you are in your life, relationship, body image, right? All that. You start doubting everything that you're doing. And it just leads a lot of people down the wrong path.
Right. Well, and I think that, like you said, the mind is, trust me, I mean, you start getting into this rabbit hole of where our minds can take us. I mean, it's no wonder we hear these stories and what movies are made of, but I mean, there's that mindset that you have to get out of your own head sometimes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we put a lot of pressures on ourselves, and I just think our generation, just because of how we were brought up and things that were different between our parents and us, that we have so many compounded, the perfectionism, the pressures, I think we can touch on them, and the competition and all these things that, oh, hey, Sam, there's Sam from our Why Not. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.
But yeah, I think there's a way that we can look at the self-doubt, when it's happening. How do we deal with it right off the bat? Like you said, you can choose the next decision, and how that it's almost like developing these skills that we talked about, the growth mindset. Is this something that's temporary? Is this something that we can work on and change? And, versus having this, it's infinite. This is what it is. And I think that's where a lot of the self-doubts come. This is something that's temporary versus it's forever. Like you talked a little bit about those mindsets, those fixed mindsets.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't remember who wrote that book. I actually have it upstairs. I was just thinking about it when we were talking about that before we went live. And it just thinking about like the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset. And if anybody knows who wrote that book, right, let us know, because I can't remember that lady to save my life, and it's going to irk me until I figure it out. But anyways, but yeah. But the growth mindset, like we were talking about, like I gave you the example of like learning Spanish, right? Like either you think you can't learn it or you think you can learn it. And so that's really what we're talking about, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. But I think a big thing that has led, especially millennials, to self-doubt, not just comparison, right? But it's like the trophy generation that we grew up in, right? That everybody's a winner, that everybody, gets a participation trophy, and life is not anywhere close to that.
Right. And I think as we get older and we start to realize that, we have to retrain ourselves in a sense of that. And I think too, I mean, I know my mom was, single mom, and she was a soccer clinic coach. She was my Girl Scout troop leader. She was very involved. Which I appreciate, because that's where I think I got all that from. But there were times where I was on the soccer field, and you, as a single parent too, you're acting as two. You're trying to provide and give that support and that energy and that passion and encouragement. But I think too, and nothing to fault her, is just there was a lot of you're fine, get back out there, fight. You're all these things of, and it's not necessarily the whole trophy thing, but I think it was a lot of that don't give up. But I think it was just this thing that you can do it. you're this way. And, you know, we're almost persuaded to feel like we're a certain way, like we're so special and we're amazing and we're all these things. I mean, it might be a bad example, but I think that it then can lead into, you know, us feeling deserving of something that isn't, we have to work with others. We can't just work with ourselves too.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, you know, and just to, you know, continue the conversation about the trophy generation, you know, that we were a part of, it you know, a lot of kids, and I'll say kids, I'll say adults now, but a lot of kids back then, you know, they didn't really experience any type of, I don't want to say misfortune, right? That's not the right word, but deviation from what they were supposed to get. And because they always got what they, you know, they always got the praise. They always got, everything was fine, right? We need to support our children. And that's great. You should support your children, but not to the point where it makes them sheltered, right? That's, I guess that's the word I was looking for, is sheltered. And when you get out into the real world and you get out from underneath mommy and daddy's tutelage and you're not in their house anymore, you're responsible to be at work, you know, and to show and produce. And, you know, I remember seeing friends that would go into their boss's office and their boss would be like, hey, I didn't like what you did here. Like, it sucks. Right. And then, like, it would be a complete meltdown, breakdown. And they would be not, you know, and they would take it so personally. And because, like, for so long they've been taught or told, hey, you're special, you know, you do everything right. You're such a good, you know, and that's what I meant. Like, life is not like that, right? Because it isn't. I mean, nothing's given.
Right. Well, and I think that it all falls into, like, self-esteem, you know, how you feel about yourself, how you're, that confidence and that idea of perfectionism. You know, I think we're always striving to be better, and, you know, we want to commit to being better, and, you know, or committing to being better is the only way to get better, obviously. But then it comes with this cost of like that pursuit of perfection. And I loved your comment the other day about progress, not perfection, right? Yep. Because we, you know, compared to our older generations too, we definitely do more with self-improvement and, you know, and hold ourselves to higher standards. But I think that self-esteem is another thing, because it goes along to the, you know, that idea of us being told all those things as a child affects our self-esteem, don't you think?
Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree. You know, and just to kind of piggyback off that, like, sometimes you said something about expectations, right? And it sparked a thought in my mind that sometimes we set unrealistic expectations of ourselves, right? And it's not to say that
and other people,
and others, right? We expect things from people, right? Especially people that are close to us, right? And when those expectations get let down, right, that can cause self-doubt about that relationship, that friendship, right? You know, especially nowadays, right? Like, I'm totally doubt some of my friendships that I have just because of just what's going on in the world. And you see people's real life viewpoints, right? And you're like, whoa, I totally don't agree with what you just said there. Like, you know, there's like no coming back from some of these comments that people make. And so that doubts relationships. But, like, for me, like, setting super high expectations when you've never been there before, in a sense, like, you can't go from like 0 to 1,000 miles an hour. Like, you have to work your way up. And I think when we were, like, going back to the trophy generation, when, you know, we have these high expectations of ourselves when we never done anything like that. And then all of a sudden we fall short. And then when we don't have anything to look back on, be like, well, you know, last month I did this. It was a big milestone. But instead of, like, if you don't have any track record of being successful or something like that. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, I think we talked about the goals, like looking back, writing down where you are today, where you were, but it's also reflecting self-reflection too. So we have to look at the goods and the bads. And I think that when we sort of get out of our own head and we kind of step out in a sense, which is very hard, I guess you almost have to separate, I don't know, the anxiety and like the distress of what what the self-doubt really is and what the reality is. Like you said, I think there's things that I say to myself all the time when I doubt myself, okay, or I doubt something, or it's like, it's not the end of the world. There's always tomorrow. Like I'm reflecting. I reflect in a sense. I think it's something that can be a solution in a sense to that self-doubt. I mean, there's definitely ways that you can, I don't know, like separate it and look at it. I don't want to say logically, but I think that there's things like, what are there things that you do to separate? This is a bad example, but I had a really bad time with my debt after my divorce. I told you this, and I had gone to someone to help me with it, a financial advisor, just to get the conversation started. And I was scared to death. I had so much self-doubt because of the debt. And that's a huge thing, I think, with finances people do. And what she told me was, which is a lot that you can do first person versus third person. So I had to put a spreadsheet together, and instead of putting Melissa's name on it and Melissa's bills, I put Sarah's bills. I came up with a name, and it was a Sarah with no H, just because I was like, Sarah, no H. And I was able to do that and face all those things because it wasn't mine, right? Because I was pretending it was someone else's. And I know this is a dumb example, but I think that there's something to be said about when we do doubt ourselves to try to, I don't know if it's just look at it a different perspective or look at it in the third person and kind of step outside of what it is. I do that. I don't know if there's anything you do, but.
Well, I mean, what you just told me right there is a big thing that I try to do. And it's, you try to take the emotion out of things, right?
Right. You're right.
You have detached emotionally from that. Now it's a logical thought, right? Now, because that's what happens when we think emotionally, 9 times out of 10, it's usually a bad outcome, right? Like you get on the phone with somebody, you start screaming at them, right? And then you're like 10 minutes later, you're like, why did I do that? Right. Like, that's so stupid.
Emotional. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you were able to turn off the emotional part of your brain and turn on the logical part of your brain. Like, okay, this is the problem. How do I help Sarah without an H, right? Like, how do I help her?
It's her debt. Yeah. It's hers. It's like, hers. She's
yeah, like it's all hers, right? And so that's a lot of what I try to do as well. And in the same token, if I'm trying to accomplish a goal, right, and try to make it real and make it tangible, is attach emotion to it. Like, how would I feel when I accomplish this goal? Like, what is that going to look like? How is that going to change my life? Right? Like, what are those things look? But when you're dealing with something like self-doubt, you're totally, I call it I don't know if you've ever heard of this term before, but I call it emotional hijacking, right? You've been emotionally hijacked, and you're not able to think clearly to make rational decisions. Like, no, like that's not how I want to feel. How do I want to feel? I want to feel happy. Okay. How do I feel happy? Right. Like, that's a logical thought process. Another thing that I do is, in everything I do, like even when we get off this live, I'll evaluate in my mind, what went well, what didn't go well, and what is something I can change for the next opportunity. Right. And I think if a lot of people use that process and take emotion out of whatever they're trying to make a decision on, I think that has helped me. Like I said, it might not help everybody, but that's what I do, because I'm an emotional person. I definitely wear my heart on my sleeve. And so, but you don't make good decisions in an emotional state.
Right. Well, and I think it just what you said too about doing that, I think that makes good for leaders and managers and business, that you can actually, whether it's constructive criticism on yourself or whether it's just evaluating and that self-reflection, like we said. But I think that that's a really good thing, because then you're anything that did go wrong, you can try to do better. And anything that you did do well, you can continue to do well. And I think that, there's things that I do with when I do a job or a project or work with a client and something that went wrong. Okay, I need to do better with this. And I definitely think that knowing those things and being okay with their faults and all those things too. But I think you had brought up something earlier that I don't know exactly what you said, but it almost made me think too about our fear. I guess I think that a lot of self-doubt comes from fear, and fear of the unknown and fear of this. And there's a lot of things that people, I joke about. There were so many times where that fake it till you make it. Like when I went into selling my greeting cards at 21 years old in Philadelphia, I BS'd my way to getting information from one guy who helped me and educated me. And then I took it to another store and I used that information, and I was joking, like, I'm going to fake it till I make it. And, it can only go so far. I feel that I think that due to like lack of experience, that we have that feeling that we're faking it until what's really making it, what's really success, but that you have this fear of, I don't know, like there's people who are afraid of being put on the spot, or obviously like doing presentations or something. But I think that for me, I had given an example of going to a networking event, and I know a lot of, it's not necessarily women or men, but that I was looking at older people at that networking, and I felt inferior. I felt a lot of self-doubt on myself because of the lack of experience. And I think a lot of other millennials that have that feeling of not being, I don't know what to say, I'm going to say inferior, being inferior or being something in the workplace, but that it's that fear of not people knowing that you're not as great as you are or something. I don't know.
No, I mean, I definitely think fear is a huge factor in self-doubt. Just like you were saying before, it's just a matter of not being somewhere, right? And doubting your own skill set. Mm-hmm. I do that from time to time, is doubt my own skill set. Doubt my, the fake it till you make it, right? I used to do that too, until I read somewhere, it might have been Gary Vee or something like that, but like, embracing that you don't know something, mm-hmm. I think is a huge thing. I think because being self-aware that you don't have to know everything, right? You don't have to be the expert. And I think often people don't fall enough on I call it falling on your sword, right? Like, hey, I made a mistake, right? It's my fault. Like, and being able to embrace that failure or that thought or that misstep, right, as a learning experience, rather than saying, well, that person's never going to do business with me again because I failed, right? No, I mean, we're human. We're just like you said. It's progression over failure, mm-hmm. or over perfection. Mm-hmm. As long as you're moving in the right direction, that's all that should matter. Like I'll tell clients all the time, like, listen, if I don't know that answer, I'm not going to make something up for you, right? Because that just ends up causing. I used to do that. Like I would like try to bullshit my way through an answer. And then it would end up always just biting me in the butt later down the road.
I tell you what, I've dealt with that twice this week, as you know, and it's frustrating because I just feel I don't like to hear excuses anymore. I gave way too many excuses in my life, and I'm tired of giving excuses when something goes wrong or you're late on something or you did something wrong. I used to type emails and it would start with, I'm sorry I was late, but I blah, 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 blah. No. People don't care anymore. Like, I'm not saying that they don't care. I just think that they don't want to know. I think that it's more of accepting responsibility to things. And this is not really what we're talking about, but I just think it goes back to that whole thing of owning up to your mistakes, like you said. And I think that helps with confidence. And I also think that it will, the self-doubt is when you're hiding behind excuses, or you're not. I don't want to say that you're lying to people or yourself, but I think that when you have that look, yeah, exactly, Sean, be authentic. I love it. So it has something to do with that self-doubt in yourself. I think that when you are honest about those things and mistakes and not trying to BS your way through things, like you said, it's such a better feeling for yourself, but also the other people that you're having to deal with. I think if you stand for something, then it comes out in so many other ways too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just thinking of an example in my head. I remember when I first started, in the financial services world, and I was really getting out on my own and doing things really, by myself, not with a trainer or anything like that. And I remember it was like going to be the biggest client that I had ever had. And I remember I was so excited, like, I'm going to get this, right? And then, I sit down with them, I present, and everything went well. And then, they're like, yes, we're going to move forward. And then like a week later, like, hey, we're not going to move forward. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I remember, and it was like, because I had made a small mistake, and I beat myself up for like weeks about it. But then like I had the same situation happen again. And I remembered, I was like, wait, I made that mistake before, I'm not going to make it again. Right. Instead of self-doubting, like, well, this is another big client, like, am I going to mess up again? Like, oh, I'm going to mess up again. I just know it. Like, and already like being defeated. Like, mm-hmm. I think it's so important the way that we talk to ourselves, right? The mm-hmm. conversation that we're having, right? Like, I think in a weird sense, like self-doubt is good because it means you're listening to what your brain is kind of saying, but it gives you the ability to have a conversation back with it, not just say, right. Oh, that's what I'm supposed to think, right? No, like that's not how I want to think. Like, that's not how I want to think. Like who like, it's funny, like I'll be walking around the house, my wife will be like, who are you talking to? Like,
you're pumping yourself up. Like, yeah, I mean, I think it's an opportunity. It is an opportunity to question ourselves, but then to reassure ourselves, right? Yeah. At the same time that it's, we can do this. We are good at this. And, I've done the same thing where something's happened where I didn't get something, and I was going to ask you too, was it really something that you did? I mean, or was that self-doubt? Did you think that it was you and something that you did, and that's why you didn't get this client or this job? And there's been times where I have felt, what did I do wrong? Or did they not like what I did? Did they not like my work, or whatever it is? Or was I priced too high or something? But a lot of times I have to keep telling myself, especially in the creative field and all that, that it's not always me. It's not always you. We doubt ourselves. We try to find these reasons of what did we do wrong when we weren't good enough. But that's not the case in a lot of times.
I mean, one thing that I have started doing, like so I don't miss out on very many clients, but the ones that I do miss,
okay.
pat myself on the back. No, but the ones that I do miss out on, right? I will now, like, like when you take ownership of like mm-hmm. your failure, it's basically like telling like your failure or whatever, like you're in charge. Like, no, mm-hmm. I get to decide whether or not like it's failure, right? Like not you failure, right? And so like I'll often like write the client a message, saying like, thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. Listen, I really do appreciate, us working together. However, I would really love to know, not trying to get you back or anything like that, but for the next time I'm talking to a new client, right, that I don't run into that same situation. So what was it? Was it something I said? Was it something I did? Like, even when I'm talking to a client, and you can, when you're talking to somebody, you can read their facial expressions. I'll say, hey, like, is there something I said that is causing you to feel in a weird type of way? Like, taking ownership of what's going on has eliminated a lot of my self-doubt. Right. Has kind of said, no, I'm taking ownership of this.
Right. Well, and I do that too. I mean, I think getting feedback is great from people as to things. I had that happen with with a situation, and it wasn't anything about me. It was there were other vendors in the event industry that the organization did this to. It wasn't just me that they said and maybe it was they were looking for the cheapest, using the cheapest person. But I wanted to write right away and say, well, can I ask why or who you went with? Or, I didn't want to feel needy. I didn't want to feel like, well, like use me, but I can do it cheaper. And I didn't want to do all that stuff, but sure, I wanted to know about it. But there's also times where it's like interesting that you say that, because I sometimes just tell myself, I'm not saying that I make it up, like I make up the answer, but a lot of times instead of just holding onto it and thinking and like, what if they never wrote back? Like, what if they never responded? And then you have this, like, you don't have closure. It's like a relationship. You're like waiting for, why didn't they choose me? You're waiting for this closure for them to come and apologize, and they never do. So what I've done too is I just said to myself, you know what? My pricing was fair. I already gave a discount for the nonprofit. I know I'm good at what I do. I have the experience. I have this. And that's where sometimes I use that self-love that we talk about instead of the self-doubt. I try to give myself that self-love at that time so that I don't carry that with me throughout the day, throughout the week, wondering why. I kind of reassure myself because you don't know if they're going to reassure you. You never know.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think that's something good, is to learn to, even the things that you question, what if I did this? Like you said, no, but I know I'm good at this. I know and just constantly, making sure that our self-esteem is in check too, I guess, and our confidence. But
yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely a good point. And like I said, when I do some of that stuff, like I already have in my mind, like I did the best job I possibly could have. Right. And it's just a matter of just keeping the conversation open. Also, I might have not been the right person for them, personality, right? And so, but they might know somebody that I am a good fit for. And I think that's a thing that I do to keep that good, that it just didn't end, right? Like, that the conversation just didn't end, like showing that, because I do, but showing that you care about your product, you care about your reputation, right? And I know that's kind of getting off on a tangent from self-doubt, but I believe it kind of feels, it fuels into your self-doubt.
Definitely. Yeah. And then I guess that is the thing, is you're not wondering or worrying or having the anxiety and what did I do in this? And sure, you keep the conversation going and you learn from next time. And sometimes I think it's not you. It's not you. Sometimes it's just a combination, of a couple of things. And I think that, we can do a better job with working on ourself. I think obviously we'll always continue to bring self-doubt down.
I got a question. So because I wrote this down in my notes, because it just came to me as a thought, and I'll kind of explain the question before, like I get your answer. But do you think self-doubt and people overestimating what they're capable of, because then maybe they haven't quite built those skills yet, and they're not the person that they should be in order to land that client or land that relationship that they're in. So maybe they're not the right version of themselves quite yet. And so then they overestimate themselves, setting themselves up for
fail. Yeah.
Fail. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we've talked about that even in some of the things that I do. I've been trying to sprint to places instead of that marathon, which I always use this, and I hate running. So I don't know if I should come up with a different thing. I like to bike and spin. And I know you have a Peloton, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have an Ironman bike. So, but it's no Peloton, but still I should get into that, what is it, for a euphemism or whatever you want to call it, for spinning. But yeah, I mean, I think there's times where you set yourself up because you're trying so hard to be something or somewhere. And when you can't, you're just not ready, or you don't have the experience, or there's other things, like you put too much on your plate and then you feel like you're letting people down. And I think that there's a lot of self-doubt. Am I good enough? Am I capable? Can I achieve all these things? And I would say I agree with you 100% that sometimes it's thinking that you're somewhere that you're not, and that's okay. I mean, setting those goals and those expectations, but we maybe expect so much of ourselves, and too much sometimes, that if you can't get there, you're going to doubt yourself. And then if it's consistency, then there's going to be a lot of that feeling of failure, or trying to get somewhere. I think that's probably the whole story of my 20s. But
yeah, no, I mean, because if you think about it, like if I said, like, I'm going to make $100,000 this year, right?
Yeah.
And I never even did $50,000 this year, right? Let's just say, and then I'm like, well, I'm going to do it no matter what. And then you get to the end and you didn't do it. You're like, but you've never done it before, right? And so you might have overestimated your skill set, just because, I mean, in anything, like, it's constant learning. It's constant, things are changing, constant. I mean, people are different, right? From client to client, from person to person, whatever, relationship wise, but it's just, that thought just crossed my mind, was that I think definitely, if you overestimate yourself, without having that growth mindset and actually growing your skill set, you can always be naive, like, oh, I'm the best financial planner in the world, and I'm a week into the business, right? Or I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, or I'm the best chef in the world, and I've never cooked a grilled cheese, right? Like, you're not going to walk into Gordon Ramsay's kitchen and start, be his head chef if you've never done that before. So, yeah.
Right. And I think it also has to do with thinking that we're ready for something too. I mean, I don't know that I wouldn't say that we're good at this, we're great, but I think that there's situations that we might have been in or put ourselves in that mentality, that we're capable, we're special, we're this thing that we were told. And then sometimes we're just not, it's not the right time in our lives. I think you touched on it, but I mean, my question I was thinking while we were talking too is, could there be something to be said about all of that, the way that we were raised, and with parents pushing that trophy that we're so special, we're amazing, self-love. Obviously, I think self-love is the greatest love, but I think it's to a certain extent, because then it becomes narcissism and arrogance.
Well,
but I think that
love anybody else if you don't love yourself first. So.
Right. But then there's loving yourself too much, right? So I think we were learned all these things about putting yourself first, and you can do this, and don't care about what other people think, and all this. That I think that's great. But I'm questioning, is that skill sets to sort of for the individual, and for, I wouldn't say being alone, but I think that it's that when the struggles that we're having later in the life, and I think it's a lot of millennials, that it's the skills of relationships and communication and vulnerability and intimacy. And I'm wondering if there's some things that we struggle with as adults because of the way that we were taught. If this, self-esteem, so much of it, could it have created self-doubt? Because that's what happens, is like we're taught to be so, not to have self-doubt and to be everything. And then somehow yet a lot of us have self-doubt.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Totally. Like, I mean, when I was listening to you guys the other, was it yesterday, right? Doing the
Wednesday.
Your divorce podcast thing. So, but like, I'm on the other aspect of that. My parents got divorced. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I know for me, for a fact, it caused a little self-doubt in any relationship I was in, right? Like, am I going to end up like this? Like, my mind was so hell-bent on, like, I'm never going to get divorced, right? And I've told you that before. Like I wanted to get married once, blah, 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 right? And so I know that created self-doubt in every single relationship I have. I know it has ended some relationships because of that self-doubt, right? Like, oh, this is not going to work out. I need to go. Like, it's not going to happen, right? And it also led to self-doubt dealing with like confrontation, right? Because you see people argue that are near and dear to you, and like you're like, well, I could never do that. Like I could never defend myself. And I know that's one of the things that you were talking about the other day is defending yourself, right? And so yeah, I would totally agree that your upbringing, your environment, totally plays into your self-doubt, because you are what you consume. In a sense, right? Whatever you consume here comes out in your life. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that things, when we talk about two things to not do or to do better or to avoid too, is let's go back to social media, our love-hate relationship with technology. As millennials, we're always looking at other people. And I think we talked about that comparisons. But, I think there's always a healthy dose of comparisons and competition, right? I mean, it's always, it's effective motivator, all this stuff. But I think that when you pull away from social media and always looking at other people, especially if you're feeling bad about yourself, or if you're in a rut and then you're looking at everybody else, I think, it's a great way to start to self-doubt yourself is always on social media and looking at what other people are doing. So I think we could bring that back up in a sense. It all ties together. I feel like other ways of maybe lessening that self-doubt. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think social media is a huge factor in all this, because I was trying, while you were talking, I was trying to think back, like, obviously when I was in high school and stuff like that, like really social media. I mean, what would you have? MySpace back then?
Yeah.
Sorry if I'm dating myself, but yes,
no,
MySpace, which was, I mean, talk about, just to go on a tangent about MySpace, for those that don't know what it is, do you remember like they had like the little section on there, like your top 8 friends?
Yeah.
And you would be like, how, like if you like your best friend, you would go on their page and you weren't a top 8.
I know.
Self-doubt, right? Like,
talk about self-doubt.
Like, I'm not a top 8 friend. Like that's messed up. So
this is what messed us up, right? MySpace, social media.
MySpace, yeah. If anybody had a MySpace, let us know. I think, I don't even know if MySpace is still a.
I don't think so.
Yeah. But anyways, going back to like being in like the pre kind of really like social media aspect of things, I'm trying to think of like moments that I had self-doubt, and I can't remember like distinct moments, but I definitely remember getting into college and getting into social media, and then even after college, like always having self-doubts of just.
Well, you even just look on Facebook and Instagram now, it's nobody liked your picture. Nobody commented. Oh, you posted this, you did this. No, that's so much of what people care about right now is getting the likes and comments and oh my Tom.
Tom was your first friend there, Sean.
He was your first friend. You're right, Sean.
He was your first friend. Wasn't in the top 8 though.
Yes. Hey, you need to get the messages. Hey, this is Tom. This is your friend. But I think that there's so much right now that is creating that self-doubt, or just maybe feeding into our inner self-doubts. Like we all have them, but there's so much going on that's pulling that out of us. And, I don't care about likes and the pictures and the comments and the this. But there's a lot of people that do. And I think that's where there could be an aspect of self-doubt if you post a picture and not a lot of people say anything about it. That's where we're at, which is sad, is that there's a lot of people who are getting self-doubt because they're searching for those things, which I think it goes back to the idea of creating these values, these core values, and the goals and all that. And instead of it being things and money and materials and fame and all these things that sure we all would love to have, and these things, but looking at yourself and your community and your relationship and all the things that are more essential values. I think the more that we concentrate on those values that are more important, we're going to less focus on the material things, the non-essential values, I don't know what words you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That'll lessen the self-doubt if you stop focusing on those things and refocus on, finding your purpose, finding your sense of belonging, and all these things that working on your relationship and communication. I think that it would take away from the self-doubt if we're, like you said, always trying to be better and work on ourselves too.
Yeah. I mean, I know I'm not calling you out or anything like that, but I know you had self-doubts about when we first started talking about doing this, right, together, mm-hmm. right? You were mm-hmm. like, I can't do all this by myself. I can't do all this, but sometimes you need to reach out for help, right? You mm-hmm. need to, and I think that's a big thing too, is, you were kind of talking about some steps that you can take to, relieve self-doubt, and you understand that you're a strong person. We're all strong people. We can handle a lot. We can take on a lot of things, right? But at the end of the day, you need human connection. You need the ability to say, hey, I can't handle this by myself. Mm-hmm. Right. And I mean, that's what I do in a lot of different relationships that I'm in is, sometimes it's just like I said, it's taking ownership and saying, I need to talk to somebody about this. I need
And
help.
The more that I started that years ago, the better I got, and the more experience that I got, the easier it was. And it's difficult sometimes when you deal with people who can't do that. And that's in business. It's not okay to be in a business situation and people trying to do things where they can't own up to things and do that. And that's where it is. I'm, at a place where I've tried to do such a better job with that. I think letting people know if they're struggling with that, it gets easier. You just have to practice and I think then your self-doubt goes down each time you're doing this. It's giving that confidence, and you're going down with that self-doubt.
Because it'll always be there. Like, you will always have self-doubt. You will those things don't go away. Like, no matter how much self-development you do, you're still human. Your brain still thinks, is wired
right.
in a primal way to think certain things. And so that's what I meant by, like, at the beginning when I said, you can't control your first thought. Like, mm-hmm. that's just the way your brain fires. But mm-hmm. you can control your second thought, and you can make mm-hmm. a decision at that point what you want to do. And so just like in that example I gave, like, obviously you're like, listen, we have great connection. Obviously we can do this together. This would be a big help to me, take a lot off my plate. Boom. Right. And then now mm-hmm. we're here. And so, but if you wouldn't have done that, right, who knows? You probably would have continued Millennial, right? It probably would have fizzled out, and it would
right. And I had to face. It was a lot of self-doubt, but it was also the reality of the situation. I mean, I was doubting myself, but at the same time, I think that I needed to address it and be honest with myself. And the self-doubt of I was trying to do something on myself that I couldn't, and I think that just facing that, facing the fear of what's going to happen, the unknown, the ifs, and look at where we're at now. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, this is our 10th episode.
I know. I've
10th anniversary.
10th episode, guys. We are like 10 weeks in. So, well, more than that, because we did a couple shows beforehand. But yeah, it's our official 10. So many more on the horizon. So I think that's a great segue to the end of the show, right? The moment that a lot of people only tune in for. No, I'm just joking. They
this is the thing. They wait 40, 45, 50 minutes for the millennial meme of the week.
Yeah. Yes.
Although last week we got a lot of likes on ours from last week. So.
There were. I mean, that was a great one. That really was. And so I'm gonna pull it up. And so it has so much involved in this meme. It's not just self-doubt, but it goes into comparison. it goes into a lot of different feelings that we have in our life. So, but I'll pop it up. So success is not always what you see. So obviously, there's comparison in there. Like, hey, this, on the surface, it looks all good. But, for me, it's just, you never know, right? You never know what your success looks like until it reveals itself. And so obviously the rabbit with the bigger carrot is once he digs that up, is going to be in a far better.
He's got a big carrot it just has a little tiny, what do we call them? Like sprout or leaves.
Yeah.
And then the other one has this huge leaves, and then it's just like this little tiny carrot. So they're comparing, hey, I've got all this, but whose carrot is really?
Yeah. And so obviously the smaller leaf,
I love it.
The carrot, he's self-doubting himself or herself, right? We don't know if it's a girl or boy, but yeah, they're self-doubting. They're like, well, my carrot's going to suck, right? Because look at this little guy. And so,
right. And they have no idea.
Yeah, they have no idea. And so it's a perfect, you never know. So even though we deal with self-doubt, you, like I said before, you might be creating a situation in your head that really doesn't even exist. So I thought that was a good, I love it. Good kind of meme for that situation. So, but yeah, I think it was an awesome conversation today about self-doubt. Hopefully you guys got some value out of today. Maybe picked up some tips and tricks to help you with your self-doubt, and know that we all deal with it. So obviously, if you're having self-doubt, me and Mel are definitely here for you. You can always reach out to us. We'd love to have a conversation with you and help you through anything that we can. But just know that you're not alone, right? So keep on keeping on.
Yeah, and Sam and I said the same exact thing. I think with a lot of the things that we've been through, we've had a lot of self-doubt in ourselves and our relationship and futures and all that. And I think, if you haven't watched the last Why Not, with Mel with Sam about divorce, definitely, it's something that we talked about a lot about self-doubt. Yeah. So I think this was a great topic this week, and a follow-up to comparing ourselves and just, having that confidence. And I think the more that you can, lift yourself up and cheerlead yourself too, it's gonna help.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, we appreciate everybody that jumped on today. Make sure if you missed, right, or a friend that missed, shame on them, first of all. But second of all, they can check us out on a bunch of other platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, SoundCloud, you name it. We're on it. If it doesn't exist yet, we'll be on it soon. So, but we do appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Make sure you let us know where you're coming in from, because we'll come back on here and let you and interact with you guys. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a great weekend. Like I say, Mel, always go out there and make good memories with your family, your friends. But before we get out of here, like always, Mel, leave us with the last thought before we get off.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Take the weekend to enjoy with family and friends, work on your work-life balance, or what did we say, our work-life integration? I don't know what our last word was, but obviously I'm not home. I'm up in Huntington because I'm trying to balance that work and life and come up with some creative solutions that, if you're struggling with something that's happening, especially during COVID right now, not doing anything is not going to get you anywhere. So, so I think, especially with relationships, everything takes work. And I'm coming up with some. Oh, he's trying to cut me off. Look, I'm going too long.
No, I had a Mel moment.
I'm kidding.
I had a Mel moment with my.
I talked about the controls and in the Why Not with Sam. I was like, I'm doing a better job when I have to, when I'm forced to do it myself. But no, I just think, I think that we all doubt things, but it's all about, facing things and taking control and making better choices and decisions to make us all better in our relationships and work and everything.
Wonderful. I love it. That's great advice. So anyways, guys, next week, right, same time, same channel, make sure you join in. If you haven't hit your notifications for this, do that as well. When we go live every Friday, 12 o'clock. Like I said, we're going to be having some more stuff come down the pipeline when it deals with, why not? And then also what's brewing with Billy. We'll be posting about that here hopefully shortly. So, but anyways, guys, have a good one and we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.